Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming and more Arc Raiders. Once again, I'm back to talk about more mistakes I've been making, things I'm working on, improvements to my gameplay that I can share with you, hopefully help you make the right choices or make some improvements to your own gameplay. With that said, let's begin. First up, just a little thing, but when it comes to your most expensive ammo, obviously hullcracker and launcher ammo, easy example of this, put it in your safe pockets. Something I hadn't realized is that it's not like a special container. Maybe this is my Tarkov brain, but ammo can't be loaded unless it's like in my pockets or my rig. If it's in my backpack or somewhere else, you can't directly load it. Well, that's not the case in Arc Raiders. Even though this is in my safe pocket, you can see that some of this has been consumed. Let me just fire some off real quick so that I can reload. So you can see it's pulled kind of awkwardly from this right stack, 22. Instead of 24. So what this means is that if I die, someone sneaks up on me, yeah, I'm going to lose my hullcracker. That sucks. 30k in value, let alone the upgrades. But at very least, all of my ammo is saved. But you might be looking at like 3 stacks of 24 and thinking that's not enough to actually kill anything. Or at least not as much as you'd like. Well, the concept of the hullcracker needs to be viewed differently. With the triple nerfs that it's currently received, in terms, of course, of its reliable damage and the cost and effective use of it. And as we've seen with a popular Reddit post, it's called the hullcracker. The idea is to crack the hull, break off armor. Then you swap to a different weapon that has higher DPS output now to attack the exposed spot. So everyone's talking about the Renegade 4. And the reason for that is pretty straightforward. You're able to accurately shoot quickly, especially when it's upgraded because you get this much better fire rate, into the weak zones. Like, yeah, the hullcracker hitting the very same, weak zone is going to do fantastic damage. But the problem is the cost of the ammo and actually how quick it sends it out. You can get those 5 shots out or whatever pretty quick, but then the reload is really long. So yes, the idea is to crack the hull with the hullcracker, and now the weak zone is vulnerable and exposed. You shoot that with whatever gun you've got. The ideal hit zones, the true weak points, seem to have damage multipliers, or at very least allow the full damage of the ammo being used to go through. So even light ammo will work well in this context, if accurately shot into a weak and exposed hit zone. What does that really mean? It's like the white exposed area of a rocketeer, on top. If you continuously shoot the top plate, you'll remove the heavy armor protection and then reveal the white underneath, as shown by me on top of it, meleeing it and revealing it. But here's an example of me and Josh killing a rocketeer from 100 to 0 by just shooting it with ferros in that weak point on the top middle. So with a hullcracker, you could ultimately fire one hullcracker shot, expose that weak point on top of the rocketeer, and swap to a different weapon and absolutely destroy it. Other examples of this would be your yellow joints or the red cores. Bastions and bombardiers, when you shoot the back battery, that reveals like the red core inside. That's specifically what you want to be shooting. Just breaking off the back battery isn't enough. You can see here, I break that back battery on this bastion. Now we can see the exposed core, and I'm going to fire hullcrackers into it. I could use a different weapon, sure, but the hullcracker accurately hitting its maximum weak point is actually incredible damage. So it goes from basically a little hurt all the way to on fire after I hit that core with a hullcracker. This kind of accurate punishment of a weak zone is how you get value out of these things now. Another example is the yellow joints, but you shouldn't get confused about this. Bastions, bombardiers, their yellow joints are always kind of obvious and exposed, right? But you look at the queen, the matriarch, their yellow joints exist, but specifically on the under half of the knee joint. So you can't see it from the top half unless you've done enough damage to the knee joint that you can see through. There's like holes that you can poke through at. Really cool detail there. But ideally, you'd go under her center and then shoot outwards into these now very vulnerable exposed yellow joints. The hitbox might be hidden and small, but their health is very low, which means you can surprisingly quick break off these legs if you're actually hitting these weak points. It's interesting, you can kind of apply the same logic to a bunch of weapons. You take an energy weapon and you strip off all the armor protecting a queen. There's actually all these plates around the main disc or head that it has. And if you reveal those all along the side, you're going to be able to see the core within. The core within a matriarch is so obvious, it's part of the shield animation. You break off the jaw plates, it's just there. But the queen, it is there, but it's very much hidden. By breaking off the 2 front plates, you can see it. But by breaking off the side head plates, you get a better look at it too, especially when she's aggroed on someone else. If you could hit that spot with a hullcracker, yeah, that'd be great damage. but it's quite the tight shot, which is why accurate aiming with a proper weapon, like a renegade in precise fire, is so good. You can do the same concept though with literally just a ferro. I could fire at these plates enough to break them off with a ferro. This is how we're killing this rocketeer at the extract with just ferros. Alright, let's move on to some cool stuff. I talked about how you can do slide backwards last time. Pretty cool feature. Really good for burners and pops, obviously, when they're surprising you. You sprint, slide, and just turn around and shoot them. Feels awesome, by the way. But if a pop does surprise you in those many scenarios where suddenly one's on you and the gun isn't in your hand and you're not going to get time before it dives at you and explodes, be aware that you can sprint, run into it, and as it leaps to explode in the air at you, you sprint roll past and into it, putting the maximum distance between you and the explosion in that tight moment. It's just another quick way you can react to a surprise pop. Here's one that I think is fantastic, really cool. You know the annex on Damn Battlegrounds? There's that cool spot where you can drop off the balcony window room and mantle onto like the metal platform right above the elevator. You can just barely do that and stop all fall damage. Feels awesome. Well, there's another cool movement thing you can do up there. If you go all the way to the roof, there's a hole in the roof center that takes you to this like center room. This is a way to get in there and surprise people. I once killed 2 campers camping the extract like this. But there's another way. The balcony has this lip that you can actually stand on. If only you could drop down onto it without like the upper ledge overhanging it too much. Well, if you come all the way to the back and side, there is exactly that. You can drop down from the roof onto this lip, and it's just wide enough to allow you to sort of land on it. You don't have to do anything special, roll, mantle, or anything, you just land on it. And then this lets you walk around the edge of the balcony and peek in the window. Right, it's finally time to talk about synthesized fuel. You will find these red canisters all around every map, right? It specifically says Exodus, but I swear I see them elsewhere. The point of this is that, yeah, it can go in your quick use slot. So instead of being in the inventory and then you drop it to the ground, you put it in your quick use slot specifically, and then it goes on your wheel, allowing you to throw it. You can't throw it far, but as you can see, it does work like at a reasonable distance. And then, much like, say, a hornet drive, you can shoot it to explode it. And the explosion radius is surprisingly big, isn't it? Now, you may have seen some clips of this. There was one by the streamer Clean is Clean, putting down like multiple of these by some zip lines and blowing a bunch of people up. Absolutely awesome. But I remember thinking when I saw that clip like weeks ago now, like, oh, that's neat, but when is that really going to happen? You know, it requires setup. Well, take a look at this moment in a real game with me and Josh where we're just playing. We've dealt with a couple teams, we've made a lot of noise to be fair. We're looking to leave, and then we hear the next team approaching us. They're on the other side of this door. Let's see what they're doing and open the door. Boom! Synthesized fuel bomb. Just a single one, and it dealt 50 damage to both of us on either side of this pretty wide door. That wiped out our light shield completely, which by the way again is 40% damage mitigation. So we think the fuel bomb dealt about 85 before the mitigation, brought down to 50 thanks to it. At least, you know, roughly. And that makes it competitive with a trigger grenade. Like one of these synthesized fuel bombs. So basically, if you find one in the middle of a raid, it can work like a potent mine or grenade because you can throw it and shoot it relatively easy, even mid-fight. Definitely pick these up and use them aggressively, even working against Arc if you want. But obviously, it works in all kinds of setups, especially on Stellamontis. Speaking of Stellamontis, did you guys know that bodies block doors? I didn't until this map was released. As you can see, we're dealing with a shredder. There's a bunch of bodies, we want to loot them, so logically we'll close the door and just loot them, right? Well, we physically can't. Because the bodies are in the door is being blocked. It tries to close, kind of gets obstructed, and then reopens. Pretty nightmarish on that map with the shredders in specific. Basically, this is a warning to be aware that that can happen, and you'll be able to identify it based on where the bodies are. But also, if someone annoyingly betrays you, and you want to be really petty, intentionally die in a doorway, especially if a shredder's around. In regards to shredders then, obviously their damage deals in line of sight, as we all know. But did you know that includes mantling something? Meaning, as long as you're not on the side of the shredder, you're actually breaking line of sight during a mantle, as shown in this ridiculous, desperate clip. It lasts long enough as a real strategy if you have no other options. And it's very easy to pop over the side and mantle on something, anything. It is technically an option. Speaking of mantling in this exact location, this is Stellamontis in the lobby. In the lobby below it is of course the train subway extract. There's this like metal detector thing in the center, a bridge, and 2 holes on either side, which is where we saw that mantle to dodge the shredder. You can drop down there, and actually there's hilariously wasps flying by. I've once landed on one and stopped all fall damage, totally intentional. But down there is some stacked shipping containers. These work as something you can land onto mantle and stop the fall damage. So if you want to get out of the lobby fast, this is a desperate thing you can do. Here's a fun fact. You can tell if someone's been through an area with some obvious details, such as the containers are open before you got there, or there's arc bodies, whatever. But one less obvious but neat and subtle detail is the ticks. Did you know that ticks by default hang to walls and ceilings? So if there's a tick running around on the ground before you arrived in a location, this means someone's been through here, they've triggered the aggro of the tick and they've moved on. If there's no other signs, then ticks can be your warning. Naturally, the context of the situation matters here, but if I'm entering the seed vault and I see that ticks are on the ground, I know there could very well be someone in here with me right now. Alright, couple things to do with sliding and jumping. People are putting out all kinds of movement-based guides now, which is awesome to see, but there's still some stuff that I don't think is true that's coming out. I just want to talk about one of them. It's basically, you know, your max slide, where you're getting the max value of a slide. Basically, I've heard it said that you need to mess with your keybinds to make that max slide work. You need a special key on crouch hold to actually properly slide. And it's not true, as you just saw. I literally just use crouch toggle because my life doesn't need to be that difficult. But where people seem to be going wrong is basically they're pressing shift or sprint during a slide. So I start the slide, I press sprint, and it cancels it before we actually reach the bottom. You also need to use basic logic and context. Like sometimes the environment looks good for a slide, but there's a rock or a bump and it stops you. That's annoying, but it's just the way it is. As long as you sprint, then slide, you do not need to hold the sprint or crouch button after that point. You just start it, and then I pretty much just hold W at this point, and that gets me the max distance slides every time. Another fun thing is the accuracy while shooting. It goes up and down. Obviously, while you're moving, while you're crouching, you get better accuracy. But while you're jumping, it also changes. As you can see, as I jump, the circle grows and then tightens up again. If I'm not ADS and I jump, same thing, but it's, you know, maybe less aggressive. But there's this little detail. When you jump, you do not lose accuracy in the initial part of the jump. So I jump and I fire before we lose the accuracy. I'm seeing more and more people actually make use of this, much like the constant sliding around and rolling back into cover tech that I think is pretty well known now. Why you would want to jump is on approaches in specific contexts. If I can slide downhill, you best believe I'm doing it. Pushing someone while sliding feels incredible because you have the accuracy, you can aim and ADS while moving at really quick speeds, while being a hard to hit target. And it is my #1 favorite way to take people down, as you can see. But sometimes you can't slide because, well, I don't know, I'm like this, going uphill. So in those scenarios, you need to do something to make it harder to shoot you, especially when we're talking about a toro, an anvil, anything that's got delay between the shots. The common thing to do, the basic thing to do, is just roll. But don't forget, you can sprint, you can jump and fire, and try to make your head a difficult target. Make it difficult for the person shooting you to hit you. And be aware then that you lose accuracy once you're at the height of the jump, so as long as you fire as you begin the jump, you don't feel any downsides. And don't forget that while you're jumping, you can ADS while moving, and you see how it tightens up as I come down to the ground. And even with something like a toro, making sure that your hits are on target, that's what leads to those beautiful 2-shot kills. So if someone's below me here, maybe I could slide, or maybe I could jump at ADS and then roll between, finishing them in 2 to 3 shots based on my accuracy. So make use of some jumps in your PvP. I'm experimenting with it right now. But yeah, there's our newest set of things that I wanted to talk about, mistakes I've been making, things I'm thinking about and trying to improve. I hope it was useful to you. As always then, if you want to add to any of these topics, let us know in the comments, or make a suggestion for the series, we might just talk about it. Until next time then, I've been Hollow, you've been you, and thanks for watching.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.